Good morning, grade 12s. Today's work is some more revision. Today we're going to look at the market structure of the perfect market. Remember, when we refer to the market structure, we are referring to the characteristics of that particular market. The work that we are doing today is not an essay on its own. All right, there are essays in chapter 6, we're still getting there. But when they ask you the characteristic of the perfect competitor, it will be in comparison with another market structure. All right, so that is a different lesson altogether. The characteristics that I'm going to focus on today, as I said, we did this last year word for word. All right, so there's nothing new here that you do not know. So today is also basically just focused on revision. It is important though. They do ask this, as I say, in comparison with another market structure as an essay question, not on its own like this. But on its own like this, they can also ask, discuss for 8. Short questions, section A, as well as discuss for 8 marks, which is also very important. All right, so if we look at the market structure of the perfect competitor, the perfect competition, it is a market structure that has a large number of participants, of which all of them are price takers. There's no entry or exit barriers, so there's freedom of entry and exit. All the relevant market information is available to both buyers and sellers, and they sell a homogeneous product. When is a market perfect? A market is perfect when there is no excessive control that is exercised by any one of the participants. In other words, your individual producers, your individual consumers do not have market power because nobody can influence the price. This is very, very important. It is a characteristic that is unique to the perfect market. All buyers and all sellers in the perfect market are price takers. This means that the price is determined on the market, and each producer and each consumer takes this market price and accepts it as a given. No single producer can change this price through his actions. No single consumer can change this price through his actions. All right. So in the perfect market, there are many relatively small businesses, okay, so many that not a single one can influence the price, and each of these small businesses produce an identical product. All right, so because there's so many buyers and so many sellers, large quantities are bought and sold at the given market price. The perfect market is the market structure that has the lowest prices and the largest quantities. The output level is the highest out of all the different market structures. All right, so each individual producer will only take into account his own cost structure and then the market price that he has no influence over. So each individual producer will decide which quantity he is willing to produce and sell, obviously in order to maximize his profits. Remember, our overall goal in a business is to maximize profits, not to make profit, to maximize profit. So every producer will have to decide how much he's willing to produce and sell at the given market price. But he cannot change the price. He will only look at his own costs and then the current market price, and that will determine how much he's willing to produce and sell. In the perfect market, one producer does not take into account what his competitors are doing. It is pointless to watch what your competitors are doing because nothing that your competitors are doing can influence the market price. Okay, the only thing that you are looking at is the market price and your costs, because that will determine how much profit you are able to make. None of your competitors can influence the price. So you are not at all interested in what your competitors are doing. Okay, So your definition of a perfect market, you should know this, you've done this since grade 10. A market is perfect if the price, the market price that is determined, is a true reflection of its scarcity value. So this means that the prices are formed by the interaction between demand and supply only. There's no interference by the government. There's no interference by an individual producer or consumer. The market demand and the market supply will determine the price, and that price is a true reflection of the scarcity of the goods. Obviously, the more scarce something is, the higher the market price will be. All right. Now, in the real world, there's no such thing as a perfect market. A perfect anything doesn't exist. All right. But we do the perfect market to show us what the ideal is so that we can compare all the real market structures. We want to compare with what we think is perfect so that we can identify the shortcomings of the real market structures. If you are asked to give examples of perfect markets, as I said, in reality they don't exist, but the markets that you can use as an example, the markets that come very close to being perfect, is the agricultural produce market, okay, so the fresh produce markets. You can also mention the foreign exchange market, okay, because remember in South Africa, we use a free floating exchange rate system. Therefore, the value of the rand is determined by demand and supply only. That is a perfect market. And then the last example you can use is the JSE, the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. If we look at the characteristics or the conditions for the existence of a perfect market, the first one is that homogeneous products are being sold. Homogeneous means they are identical. So the products being offered for sale by different producers in the perfect market, they are all identical. There's no obvious differences in quality, and therefore the products are perfect substitutes for each other. Okay, just remember, a substitute product, it means that you have two different products that will satisfy the same need. So you are either going to use the one or you are going to use the other. Now, in a perfect market, products are perfect substitutes because they are identical. So whether you use the one product of one producer or whether you use a different product from a different producer, they are identical. It doesn't matter which one you use, they will equally satisfy your needs. Right, homogeneous products also means that the product itself does not influence the buyer with regard to which seller he buys from. So in other words, there's no preferences. All right, so whether I buy from producer A or whether I buy from producer B, I don't care. The product itself doesn't influence my decision. If you think in the real world, if we think of hamburgers, this is not an example of a perfect market, right? But if you have Burger King burgers and you have McDonald's burgers, the product itself is influencing your decision to buy. If you buy from Burger King, it is because you like the burger patty or the special sauce that is on there. All right, as opposed to the different patty that is on a McDonald's burger. The products are different, they are differentiated. That does not happen in a perfect market. In a perfect market, all products are 100% identical. So there's no reason why you are buying from a particular buyer and not from a particular seller and not from the other. It's just, it is what it is. Okay, there's no preference, personal preferences here. Because it doesn't matter which seller you are buying from, their products are identical. The product is not influencing your decision. Okay? Literally, your decision is only based on the price, and the price is identical. Okay, so it honestly doesn't matter to the buyers in a perfect market who they buy from. All right. So only totally homogeneous products can compete purely on price. That is what I just said. Now, if you have differentiated products, People buy your product not necessarily because you are cheaper, because they like your product more. Okay, if I buy a Burger King burger, it is not necessarily because it is cheaper than a McDonald's burger. It is because I like the product more than a McDonald's burger. Okay, those are differentiated products. In the perfect market, products are homogeneous, so they are identical, so they compete purely on price. Only the price will determine the actions of the buyers and sellers. All right. The last point says differences in style, design, and quality means that products that look similar are actually not homogeneous. All right. If a product is different colors, they are not homogeneous. If the design is slightly different, they are not homogeneous. Homogeneous means they are 100% identical. Same style, same design, same color, same flavor, same quality. Then they are homogeneous. The second characteristic is that there is a large number of buyers and sellers. All right, now we can't put literally like a number amount and say this many is enough. Okay, there must be so many buyers and so many sellers that it is impossible for a single buyer or single seller to influence the price through his or her actions. Okay, so what it means is that each individual producer, there are so many sellers that each individual producer only supplies a teeny tiny part of the total market supply. So they have no market power. Remember, normally, if a producer increases his supply, the price will fall. In the perfect market, this doesn't happen because each individual producer is so small and insignificant. Even if one individual producer doubles his production and supply, he's so insignificant and his market share is so small that nobody's even going to notice that his supply has increased and he has no influence on the price, okay? Because there are so many sellers, all right? So each individual producer only captures the smallest share of the market. And if he decides to produce nothing, nobody's going to even notice because there are many others that are still supplying. No individual producer can change the price. Each individual producer can only control their own production factors. As I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson, each individual producer will only focus on their own costs and they will look at the market price. They have no control over the market price. They cannot change it. But they have to decide if this is the market price. How can I utilize my production factors more effectively to increase my profit? All right. So basically the producer will decide how much he is going to produce. And obviously the more he produces, the more production factors he's going to need, which will increase his costs. Right, so each individual seller and each individual producer is a price taker. Okay, as I said, each one's share is so small, it is 100% impossible for them to influence the price through their actions. Each seller and each consumer is a price taker. The market will determine the price, and each individual producer will take this price and they will only decide how much they're going to sell at this given price. Nothing they do can change the price. If one producer decides to charge a price higher than the market price, okay, remember, in a perfect market, there's also perfect information. All right, so if I am this idiotic producer that now thinks I can try to charge a higher price, what is going to happen to me? I am going to sell nothing because there's perfect information in this market structure. My consumers know that I am not the only one selling this product. They know there's many other sellers that are selling the exact identical thing that I am selling. So they know they can get an identical product from somebody else at the market price, which is lower. So if I think I'm now being clever and I try to charge a higher price, I will literally lose all of my consumers because they are aware that there's many other producers they can buy an identical product from at a lower price than what I am selling for. All right. The third characteristic is that there's a high output and a large amount of choice. Obviously, because there are many sellers. We said there's many sellers, so consumers can shop around. They don't have to buy from one particular producer. They shop around. They decide who they want to buy from. And because this is an unregulated market, they can literally buy from whoever they want. There's never in a perfect market any shortages because there's many sellers. So if one seller sells out, he doesn't have any more product left, there's lots and lots of other sellers that will have the identical thing in stock, which they then will be selling at exactly the same price. All right. So remember, because there are many sellers and each seller produces a small little bitty, but if we add all those little bit together, we are going to get a high output. As I said, the perfect market is the market structure that gives us the highest output compared to all the other market structures. The next characteristic is the fact that sellers are price takers. I've said this already, okay? I already said the price is determined by market demand and market supply. So the market will determine what the price is, and each individual producer will accept this as the market price, and all they need to do is decide how much they are willing to sell at this market price. Nothing any individual producer can do will influence the price. He can increase his supply, he can decrease his supply. He is small and insignificant compared to all the lots and lots of other sellers, so nothing he does can change the price. As I explained earlier, your producer will never try to charge a higher price because there's perfect information, and he will lose all of his customers because his customers will be 100% aware of the fact that there's many other sellers that sells the exact same thing at a lower price. So nobody is going to buy from the producer that tries to raise his prices higher than the market price. Right. Compared to all the different market structures, your perfect market will also result in the lowest prices. So in the perfect market, they will have the lowest prices and the highest output levels. The next characteristic is that there is no collusion. All right. What does collusion mean? We did this last year. Collusion is when sellers or buyers, but mostly sellers, different sellers, will enter into an agreement with one another to limit competition so that they can push prices up, to influence the price. Mostly when there is collusion, prices will go higher. Not always, but mostly. All right. So collusion means that businesses that should be competing with one another are actually cooperating with each other and discussing amongst themselves how they can limit competition, how they can cooperate, in other words, so that together they can push prices up so they can make more money. Now, in the perfect market, collusion is impossible. Okay, we literally said there's hundreds of thousands of buyers and sellers in the perfect market. Now, I don't know in your family, but in my family, I have 2 children, and I cannot even get my 2 children to agree on something. All right. Literally, if we on a Friday decide what takeaways we are going to eat, Cara will say she wants pizza, and Daniel's going to say, he wants Nando's. All right. Two different people that cannot agree. So in a perfect market, because there's so many sellers, it is impossible to get all of those sellers together, first of all. And even if we could get them together, it is impossible for us to get them to agree on something. So collusion doesn't happen in the perfect market. In the perfect market, both your buyers and your sellers are neutral and impartial with regard to whom they buy from or sell to. As I said, buyers and sellers, they act independently from one another. Remember, I said each seller doesn't even look at what the other seller is doing because each individual seller is a price taker. Nothing any individual seller can do can change the price. So why should I even be concerned with what my competitors are doing? It has no effect on me because all of us are price takers. Okay, so buyers can buy from whoever they want. They're neutral and impartial. They don't care who they buy from because the products are identical and the prices are the same. Sellers are neutral and impartial with regard to who they sell to. They don't care who they sell to as long as they can sell what they have produced to make a profit. All right. Literally in the perfect market, only the price will influence the actions of buyers and sellers. All right. Not the product, not collusion, the price. And the price is determined by the market. Okay. In terms of the profit, I'm going to explain this now. We did do this last year. Okay. We did talk about economic profit and normal profit last year. But yeah, some of you won't remember. Okay, a lot of you won't remember because you like delete stuff, Control-Alt-Delete at the end of the year. Okay, but I will do this. This is actually an essay question this year. So I will explain this again later on. For now, just know that we distinguish, remember from the last lesson, we distinguish between the short run and the long run. Okay, so in the short run, your individual producer in the perfect market, in the short run, can make a normal profit, an economic profit, or an economic loss. But in the long run, your individual producer in the perfect market will only make a normal profit. How this works and why it is like this, we will look at later in this chapter. Okay. The next characteristic that is also very important is freedom of entry and exit. Okay, now obviously, in the perfect market, we said there are many buyers and many sellers. The reason why there are many sellers is because it is easy for people to enter into this market. All right, so any producer wishing to enter this market can do so without any interference from the government, without any kind of restriction. All right, so any producer have freedom of access. They've got freedom to access to enter into this market, and they can also leave the market when they wish to do that. Okay, so in other words, it means that there are no barriers to entry. There's nothing preventing any seller from entering into this market. There's no law that says only A, B, and C can enter this market. There's no permits that needs to be issued for people to enter this market. No tenders, no licensing, no regulations. There is nothing that is preventing new entrepreneurs from opening up a business in the perfect market. Okay, and as I said, remember the perfect market is just this ideal thing that we are aspiring to. In the real world, it doesn't exist, okay? Because in the perfect market also, new producers are not impeded by high setup costs. All right, so just think for a minute, in the real world, if it costs 10 million rand to enter an industry, that 10 million rand capital, initial capital that you need to enter the market, that is a barrier to entry. Only people with money can enter the market. In the perfect market, there is no such thing as high initial capital. Okay? Competition cannot be limited just to those who have the correct amount of money to enter this industry. All right. So we are saying, and this is why this is not real, right? Because in the real world, it takes money to start a business. But in the perfect market, there is no such thing as high initial capital outlay because it doesn't take a large amount of money to enter the market. And all firms that enter this industry, because they're on a restriction, obviously will have immediate access to the same technology the same factors of production, the same information as firms that are already in this industry. All right, so immediately when a firm enters this industry, he also has perfect information. He knows immediately everything that the rest of the producers know about the product, about the technology, about the production methods, about the factors of production. He has all of that information immediately. Okay, now very important, and we are going to come back to this when we look at the long run equilibrium later in this chapter. Why would new firms want to enter the market? Okay, obviously if businesses already in this industry are making economic profit. Remember, the goal of any business is to maximize profits. So if Yanni and Pietie and Kwesi is already in this industry and they are making economic profit, I am going to say, hell, I also want to enter this industry because I also want to make economic profits. So the signal for entry into this market is economic profit. Okay, when others in this industry are making economic profits, new entrepreneurs will want to enter this industry because they also want to come and make economic profits. Right. But it must also be equally possible for businesses to leave. All right. So in other words, when would I want to leave this industry? Okay, obviously if Yanni and Pietie and Kwesi and me, we are all making losses. I don't run a business. I don't get up in the morning and go to work to make a loss. I want to make a profit. So if in this particular industry I am busy making a loss, I am going to pack up my stuff and I want to exit this industry. I want to leave because I would rather go and make an investment in a different industry where I can actually make a profit. Okay, now very important, a business can only leave this industry if there are no sunk costs. All right, sunk costs is the cost of production that you cannot recover if you leave the industry. Okay, so for example, you bought certain equipment and now when you leave this industry, obviously depreciation has happened in real life. You are not going to get the full amount back that you have invested due to depreciation of your machines and equipment and whatever in reality. But in the perfect market, we are saying there are no sunk costs. So that which you have invested when you enter this industry, you must be able to extract every single cent that you've invested. You must be able to disinvest and take it and invest somewhere else if you wish to do so. All right, just one thing I didn't say. Okay, in the perfect market, there is no advertising. All right, why do we advertise? To get people to buy our differentiated products. In our advertising, we stress the fact that my burger is better than Pietie's burger. All right, in the perfect market, products are identical. Consumers have all the information. There's no need to advertise, which also means there's no customer loyalty. Remember, we said buyers are neutral and impartial with regards to who they buy from. So if other businesses in this industry is making economic profits and I enter this industry, I don't have to advertise. There's no customer loyalty. Okay? New firms can gain market share. Some of Pietie and some of Yanni and some of Kwesi's customers are going to come and buy from me. Why not? I have the same price and I have the identical product. Okay? There's no such thing as customer loyalty in the perfect market because products are identical. Okay. Also, in the perfect market, as I mentioned earlier, it is an unregulated market, which means there is free competition. All right. This means there's no limitation on the actions of the buyers and sellers. Buyers can buy what they want, wherever they want, and however many they want. Sellers can sell what they want, where they want, and however many they want. There's no restricting measures such as government interference, price control, laws determining who can buy what and who can sell what. Okay? The behavior of your buyers and sellers are spontaneous. There's no measures to control or regulate it. Okay, if you just think now, in the lockdown now, We are definitely not operating in a free market, okay, in a perfect market, because buyers cannot buy what they want. The government is determining what we are allowed to buy now and what we're not allowed to buy. The government says what sellers are allowed to sell and what they are not allowed to sell. That is far from being a perfect market, okay? If we were in a perfect market, my 14-year-old daughter could decide that her day at school was very rough today, and she would be totally allowed in a perfect market to go to the closest bottle store and buy herself a bottle of whatever and drink it right there and then, okay? In a perfect market, sellers could sell what they want. So if you wanted to assist society in dealing with their stress by selling some recreational drugs to help them cope with their lives, in a perfect market, sellers can sell what they want to whoever they want. All right. Obviously, we don't live in a perfect market and laws are there for a reason, okay? But we are just doing the theory, okay? In theory, in a perfect market, the government doesn't determine what people can and cannot buy, what they can and cannot sell, okay? There's no restrictions. It is unregulated. No laws, no regulation, free competition. The next characteristic, and I'm almost finished, is an effective transport system. In a perfect market, all goods must be available on all the markets, but this is the catch, at the same price. Okay, so obviously an effective transport system is needed to transport products from wherever they have been produced to all the markets to make sure that they are available everywhere. All right, so basically there's changes in demand or supply in one market that is going to influence the price for the entire market. Now, obviously, in reality, in our country, for example, we do have an effective transport system. It is 100% possible for us to produce something in Krugersdorp and sell it all over the country. We can transport it wherever we need to. But the catch is, the price must be the same on all the markets. Okay, so in other words, there's no transport costs. Okay, this means that if I produce my cupcakes in Krugersdorp and I sell my cupcakes in Krugersdorp for 10 Rand a cupcake, and now I transport my cupcakes on a truck to Cape Town, and it costs me 3,000 Rand to transport those cupcakes to Cape Town, my cupcakes must still cost 10 Rand in Cape Town. All right. So in other words, there shouldn't be transport costs. In reality, in our country, transport is expensive. Okay, the petrol price is now a bit more reasonable, but transport is expensive. Okay, so what makes the real world not a perfect market is the fact that transport has to be paid. All right, in the real world, there are transport costs, and when we transport products to different markets, obviously, the further away then we need to transport them, the more expensive it is going to be to sell them, which is not allowed in the perfect market. Right, then also in the perfect market, I already said there's perfect information. This means that all participants in the market must have complete and accurate information about the current market conditions. So all buyers and all sellers will know exactly what the quality is of the goods that are available on the market. All buyers and all sellers will know what the market price is. All sellers, all producers will know exactly how to produce this product in the cheapest way possible. Okay? New competitors entering this market will immediately have access to all of this information. They will immediately know the production technique. They will know what the technique is to produce these products more efficiently. All buyers know the characteristics of the products. All buyers know exactly who are selling these products. They know how much they should be paying. They know where to buy it. All right. All sellers know exactly who is selling this product. They know what the price is supposed to be, and they know how to produce these products. Obviously, If we want to make information available to all the participants, we need an effective communication system. All right, so whichever communication system we are using, it must be working properly. It must be reaching all the producers and all the consumers so that everybody can have access to the information that they need. Everybody have knowledge of the current prices. Everybody have information on the economic climate, if we're in a recession, if we're in a depression, the demand, the supply, everything. All information is made available to all of the participants. Right, then in the perfect market, we make use of the grading of products, okay? Grading just makes it easier so that people can make purchases and sales without having physically to inspect the product, all right? So you can literally buy and sell your product over the telephone, over a website, a letter, price notation, a fax, not that anybody does that anymore, okay? So it means when we are grading goods and services, all buyers and all sellers are aware exactly, they know exactly what the nature and the quality of the product is without having to see the product and physically be able to touch and see this product. Okay, a lot of agricultural products are actually graded. Okay, when you buy potatoes, for example, potatoes more often than not is sold in a brown paper bag. That means you can't see on the inside what those potatoes look like. So if on the outside, because it is graded, it said class 1, okay, it's class 1 potatoes, you know without having to tear open that bag to see the potatoes, you know they're all nice and round and clean, no blemishes or whatever. If on the packet it says class 3 potatoes, you know when you open that bag, the potatoes are not going to be perfect. Your potatoes are busy growing new potatoes inside of that bag. Okay? Meat gets graded. Okay? Class A meat, good quality meat. Class B, not so great. All right. Mince. Mince, if you're helping your mom with the cooking now in lockdown. If you buy ground beef mince, or topside mince, or lean mince, or extra lean mince, it is grading. All right. If you buy the extra lean mince, the fat content is lower. If you buy the normal ground beef, you can feel the fat there in your mouth after you've eaten. 10 hours after you've eaten, you can still feel the fat there. Okay. It is grading. Milk, full cream milk, 2%. Fat-free, it is grading so that we know what we are buying without physically inspecting those goods. All right, then products must also be durable, all right, because we said in a perfect market, goods must be made available to all producers on all the markets, all right. So all goods must be available on all the markets. Now what makes this difficult if you have perishable goods is that obviously they go off. All right, perishable goods, it's just difficult to transport them, to have them available on all the markets. Okay, because they are not durable. All right, but once again, modern developments have improved the marketing of perishable products. If you think nicely, in our country, the transport system is so efficient. Ice blocks are very perishable. If you put an ice block in a glass, it is going to melt before you even know it. Okay, so if we use transport, modern developments in transport, for example, there's trucks on the road. We see them, it's like Ice Africa or something like that. Okay, those trucks are actually freezers on wheels. Okay, so we throw a whole bunch of bags of ice into that truck and we transport them. We can take them from Krugersdorp to Cape Town and they will still be frozen. All right. In South Africa, we export flowers. Now, flowers, you don't get anything more perishable than flowers. Now, you pick a flower and in less than an hour, it is all floopy and chaggy. Nobody wants that flower. Okay? But we export flowers because we have developed systems in our transport systems that keeps them cool and keeps them fresh so that we can market them all over to all the markets. Okay, the last characteristic is that factors of production are completely mobile. Okay, this means that labor, capital, natural resources, entrepreneurship, we can move them where we need them to be. So we can move them from one geographical area to the next, all right? So if there's a shortage of labor in the northwest, we can literally ground up some laborers and we simply move them to the northwest, okay? Now we know in reality labor is relatively immobile. Okay, we can move, it's easy, we get in the car and we move, not now, obviously, we can't change provinces now, okay? But under normal circumstances, we get in our car and we go, right? But there are reasons. Now remember, your comfort zone, your responsibilities, your husband's got a job here, so I can't move, okay? Labor generally is immobile. In a perfect market, we are saying we can literally move workers where we want them to be. We can move natural resources where we want them to be. Remember, this is impossible. Now, if gold is on the West Rand, it's there. We can't move it and decide we're going to move it now to the northwest to go and mine it there. That is in the real world not possible. Okay, so it must be possible for us to move our natural resources and our production factors from one area to another, but also to move them from one industry to another. Okay, again, in the real world, this is impossible. Okay, how do you move a laborer, let's say a teacher, from the teaching industry into the medical industry, because now we've got a shortage of doctors because it's now coronavirus and we need more doctors. No, we can't do that. If I have to become a doctor, I'm going to kill people, right? I don't have the training, I don't have the experience. It is not easy. I'm not saying it's impossible, but obviously we need to go back and we need to study and we need to finish our studies and whatever, and then we can move workers from one industry to another. It is not impossible, but it is difficult. Okay, that's why we say in reality our production factors are relatively immobile. Okay, we want them in the perfect market to be mobile so that we can move them where we need them. All right, in closing, remember I did say in the real world, perfect competition doesn't really exist, okay, in any form, anywhere in the world. Now, there's no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist, okay? But it does give us a measure against which we can compare the other market structures. Now, it's a simple model that we are going to use to predict how individual businesses are going to behave when certain things happen in the economy. But we always remember it doesn't exist. It is basically just the standard against which we can measure all the other market structures so that we can identify the shortcomings of other market structures.